Good evening, and welcome to the February 22nd meeting of the Solon Board of Education. Mr. Buchanan, will you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Thomas.
Here.
Mr. Heckman.
Here.
Mrs. Glavin.
Here.
Mr. Patton.
Here.
Mrs. Moses.
Here. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. In accordance with Board Policy 0169, this meeting is a meeting of the Board of Education in the public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business and is not to be considered a public community meeting. Due to the virtual nature of the following meeting and in accordance with state law, we are foregoing the traditional period of public comment. Should you have any public comment, please address those concerns to info@solonboe.org. Again, at info@solonb.org. Board members do receive and review the agenda accompanying the explanation the week prior to the Monday board meeting. Mr. Bolden, do we have any public comment?
Yes, we have two. First one is from Lori Abraham. Dear Solon School Board members, my name is Lori Abraham. My family and I have lived in Solon for the past 20 years. My second child and last is a graduating senior. I'm writing in response to an email that was sent last Thursday, February 18th at 5:13 p.m. from Kathleen Kinney, school counselor, AP coordinator. In this email with two attachments, she stated that due to COVID-19 disruptions, College Board is offering some flexibility to schools to select paper, pencil, or digital AP exams. Most, but not all AP exams will be available in a digital format. Solon High School leadership has decided that all AP exams that have a digital option will be taken at home with the exception of environmental science, as that digital exam conflicts with commencement. She wrote that Solon High School cannot safely administer 1,800 tests in person. As the #1 school district, how is this possible? There are no valid reasons for not having in-person testing on the original dates while adhering to social distancing and other safety protocols. College Board has very flexible requirements. Schools can choose to have any combination of the scheduled dates for testing. All tests do not have to be paper or digital. The original in-person testing dates that were distributed were May 3rd through 14th, 2021. The first option of new testing dates is the same with the exception of 3 tests on Thursday, May 13th have been moved to Monday, May 17th. These dates remain the best option to seniors that are taking AP tests. AP scores of 3 and higher are given college credit and advanced placement at many colleges. These credits help families financially and help students with their college schedules. The new dates have testing from May 14th through June 10th. These dates are awful for the seniors for many reasons. 1, at-home digital testing for 3 hours each. Others in the home will have to be silent so as not to bother the student while taking the AP test. What if the internet goes down, which happens often? Retakes are not even scheduled yet and could be into the middle of the summer. 2, increased stress levels to retain information and study for up to 6 weeks after the last day of virtual learning for the majority of seniors. Last day of virtual learning is April 30th, then the seniors have senior project. AP Chemistry, Physics C, Physics 2, and Statistics are scheduled for June 10th. Decreased ability to celebrate high school graduation with AP testing the day before graduation. English language, computer science principles seminar. The day of graduation at noon, biology, and the day after graduation, comparative government, human geography, microeconomics. Many students have family come into town to celebrate the big day. Summer jobs will have started for many students. I spoke with Assistant Principal Erica Kosorik on Friday, February 19th. She told me that Solon High School is unable to administer the AP paper test to all students without shutting down the high school for all other students due to lack of proctors and space. The school district is able to find proctors to administer the AP tests. If asked, many people would volunteer their time. No one was asked. If proctors can't be volunteers, there are 2 months for people to apply for the positions. The main gym and auxiliary gym could be arranged for social distancing. Students would wear masks, and everything would be clean between tests. Arthur Road School is basically empty and could be used for testing. The social hall at the Solon Recreation Center could be used for testing. One of the largest AP tests, United States history, is mainly taken by sophomores. That test could remain digital on Wednesday, May 19th for them, since it does not affect seniors. The dates need to go back to the original ones so that the seniors can have the best opportunity to do well on their AP tests and enjoy graduation. These seniors have had so much added stress and anxiety this year due to the pandemic. They have to take the AP tests to complete their high school education. We need to do the right thing and help them when we are able. We can help them succeed now. Thank you for your time. I look forward to your positive response. Lori Abraham, 6270 Cloverly Drive, Solon, Ohio, 44139. I guess it's important to understand the scale of what it is that we're talking about. We have 31 AP classes representing 80 sections for a total of over 1,800 tests that are going to be administered. It's a very complex logistical situation. I did meet with Aaron's team to go over the situation about what happened and why it was they were selecting to do this. And the thing that's important for everyone to understand is that distancing is an issue. We have to, even though we're getting vaccinated and we're able to do that, the state is still requiring that we maintain masking, distancing, and sanitation protocols. That is something that isn't going away even with a vaccination. When we give those tests, we normally do go in the gymnasium. We actually bring the gymnasium in and we pack lots of the children into the gymnasium much closer than the distancing that would require for us to do it. I learned that proctors are required to have a college degree, and then you need a secondary person that has at least a high school degree. So we need at least 2 people for each one of the tests that are being administered. If students get accommodations, and many of our students do get accommodations for their tests, those students have to take those tests in a separate location. So that means that on any given test, you could have not just 1 test that's being given, but it would be 3 or 4 tests that are given. It's a challenge to try to overcome that and still do it safely. Aaron's team believed that giving a test virtually levels that playing field and makes it a very even thing to do. As it turns out, if you take the paper and pencil version of the test versus taking the virtual version of the tests are actually different. They're not the exact same test, and the instruction and preparation for those tests are different. There are components that are not included in one or the other of the tests based on that. So saying we're going to try to prepare our kids for a single set of exams made it better for the kids as well, because if one kid is choosing to take one type of test and another kid is choosing to take a different type of test, that could pose problems with that.
So what you're saying is we know what's on those exams?
Yeah, we do know what's on the exams because they're the AP exams and the content is established by the AP.
But I thought I heard you say, in-house and out-of-house.
Yes, because they have.
And how could you teach?
That is correct, because AP has explained what those things are. What I would say, though, is what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the information that Mrs. Abraham has shared with us. I'm going to go back to the team that has done it and talk to them about these specific issues, and then we will reach out to Mrs. Abraham and talk to her specifically about it.
Fred, the digital dates, those are, am I correct that those are dictated by the College Board? That if we choose to do the digital virtual tests, that we have to use the dates that are provided by the College Board, is that correct?
That is correct. College Board does not give us the flexibility to select dates of our choosing. They say, if you're taking the paper and pencil test, this is the date for that test. If you are taking the digital exam, this is the date of the digital exam.
So then that precludes trying to do any changing of those that are happening the day of graduation or the dates right around graduation.
That is correct.
Control of.
Those dates are the dates. Many school districts go into school into June, and College Board is a national test. It's not the AP tests are national tests. So
Right.
if they're looking at the East Coast and the East Coast doesn't get out of school until June 15th, a June 10th test is not a significant hindrance to them for those tests. And all of our requests to College Board for leniency to shift those in the pandemic have been met with limited success.
One more question about the proctors. Clearly, we've always used the appropriate number of proctors as we've been doing this for many years. But what I'm hearing from you is this year, because of the distancing, we're going to have to we would have to spread students out further into more spaces rather than just having them all crowded in the gym. We're going to have maybe 3 or 4 classrooms. So then we would need 3 or 4 times the number of proctors. Is that the issue?
That is correct. And those tests would also be occurring when end of course exams are being taken place, which are also right now as it stands, because no new legislation has been passed. All of those end of course exams are also going to have to take place, and they're requiring those to be in person. And it's not something that can't be done, but in order to do it, we would have to send kids out of school for additional days, the remainder of the school, so that we could bring those kids that are taking the AP tests in so that we could have the appropriate distancing to go through it. We already do use the gymnasium and the auxiliary gym. We already use those locations for AP testing already. And my team doesn't believe that the distancing can be maintained and the test can be administered safely in person. But she's brought up some interesting questions that I think deserve review with the team again, and then we'll respond back to
I
it.
think, and also too, keep in mind, with what we've gone through these last months with trying to get subs to come into the district, and I'm not saying that it would be, virtually impossible to get as many proctors as we would need, but again, part of the issue is that we're having trouble, even though people, might be getting some vaccines, it still is problematic, getting people to want to come into the building
Right.
with large numbers of people around them.
I would
So I
s-
think that's a consideration as well, but I certainly understand, I think we all understand it and certainly commiserate with everything that all the students have had to go through and families this last spring and this spring, last graduation, this graduation. I mean, that goes without saying. If there was a reasonable way to be able to resolve some of these issues, that would be one thing. But I think that I'm hoping that when the team looks at it, if they can come up with something. But if, for the most part, I'm sure they've probably reviewed this at great detail.
No, they have. Like I said, I want to be fair to. I want to be fair
Right,
to
I
the.
agree. I think-
I want to be fair to the message that's here. We would love to have parents come in and do it. Parents can't proctor their own children, which means that if they are proctors and you have kids that are taking 5 or 6
Right,
different
yes.
exams, that parent can't be a proctor for those exams going through that. So, and we have, as you know, been begging for substitutes all year long. And it's a struggle to get them. So coming into a building where there's going to be 1,800 tests administered in a close environment, it will be a challenge to get the necessary number of proctors and to be able to provide the appropriate spacing. Now, that being said, the state may lessen distancing requirements. I don't see that happening, but it's not impossible. And that could change things as well. They could say that as long as masking and sanitation is being done, then yes, you can be less than 3 feet apart. In those cases, we may be able to make something happen. That actually will speak to part of the second public comment that we have, as well as our return to in-person learning. But we'll talk about that more as we move
Which
on.
I think what we're seeing too is that we've been experiencing this entire last year, is that there are 1,000 moving parts to everything that's happening. And that also is unfortunate, and it provides a lot of work for a lot of people, and a lot of different circumstances take place that maybe a lot of people don't understand, when this is happening. But I would appreciate it, Mr. Bolden, if you would, speak to the team and then be able to address Mrs. Abraham's.
I absolutely will.
Great.
Okay.
You have another one then?
I do. Our next one is from Adam and Holly Baker. Dear Board of Education and Mr. Bolden, hello. We are the parents of 2 high school students. We appreciate the district's February 19th email that stated that in-person learning is possible after spring break with those students who choose to do so. Although the email was vague, we hope that the plan is to allow all students the choice to attend 5 days in person, especially the SHS students that are currently in the hybrid learning model. Since the district wisely took advantage of the state school employee vaccination program, we expect that the learning model for in-person instruction will increase for all buildings, as many surrounding districts have already implemented. With the state relaxing the in-person school quarantining guidelines back on January 5th and teacher vaccinations, we strongly believe the district should change in March to an option for 5-day in-person learning. Hopefully, more specific details of an option for increase of in-person learning at SHS will be sent to the school community as soon as possible. In regards to the AP exam date selections, we fully support the SHS students that started a change.org petition regarding the AP exam dates. The petition thoughtfully stated that the fact that especially seniors have had so much taken from them this school year, and they rightfully do not want to take their AP exams after graduation. Further, as you are aware, last year's remote AP testing had many issues, including internet Wi-Fi problems and students unable to upload their completed exams to the College Board. If SHS was able to accommodate the state's in-person government test in December, we are confident that same can be done for the AP exams in May, when the overall outlook of the COVID situation will be even more improved as compared to December. The College Board even allows a mixture of in-person and at-home testing dates and states that schools don't need to pick just one of the testing windows or modes. AP coordinators can authorize a mix of at-home and in-person exams and mixing test dates as needed. Our hope is that our school board strongly reconsiders the selection of the AP exam dates and allows all students their choice to take the AP exams in person before May 27th. Thank you, Holly and Adam Baker, 5440 Parkside Trail, Solon. We've already spoken about the AP tests, and again, I'll reach out to the Bakers as well after I've had a chance to talk to the team about that. The one thing I would like to point out is that the government test was 150 students. The building was in full remote. It was during the time when exams were being done and there were nobody in the building, and we could use all of our teachers as proctors because everybody else was taking their tests remotely. So it's a little bit of a different situation between the two situations. That being said, both Mrs. Baker, Mr. and Mrs. Baker, as well as Mrs. Abraham have made some points about that I'll be talking with the team, and then we will reach back out to them. I guess the thing that's really important to understand about the return to school, and I'm going to talk about this in our C item update about this, is that even with a return to school, we have to follow masking, distancing, and sanitization guidelines. There has been no removal for that. The governor said that if you get vaccinated, you need to offer in-person learning, and we are absolutely going to do that. Based on the numbers that we get back from our families, we'll be able to make adjustments to what we're doing in our learning model. And again, when we get to the C item and I talk about that, I have some specific things to talk about with that. But we did say that this week and next week we would be communicating with our families with more detail, and we absolutely will be doing that.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else? Public comment-wise? Tammy, anything? Nope. Thank you, Mr. Bolden. Moving into the treasurer's report, item A1, approval of minutes. Recommended motion to approve the minutes of the special and regular meetings of February 8th, 2021. May I have a motion, please?
Move.
Moved by Mrs. Thomas.
Second.
Seconded by Mrs. Moses. Are there any additions or corrections? Seeing none, Mr. Buchanan, will you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Mrs. Moses?
Yes.
Mr. Heckman?
Yes.
Mr. Patton?
Yes.
Mrs. Glavin?
Yes. Item A2, approval of bills. Recommended motion to approve the payment of bills totaling $16,616.64 as noted in enclosure A2. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Heckman, second by Mr. Patton. Mr. Buchanan, or excuse me, Mr. Bolden.
Yes, Ms. Glavin, the majority of these bills are for security upgrades, training, software maintenance.
Great. Good. Any questions? Mr. Buchanan.
Mr. Heckman?
Yes.
Mr. Patton?
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Mrs. Moses?
Yes.
Mrs. Glavin?
Yes. Concludes the treasurer's report. Moving into the superintendent's report. Item B1, notice of public hearing, OPSI. Recommended motion to approve the retirement and rehire of the following individual for the retire-rehire incentive. That is part of the collective bargaining agreement with the Solon Board of Education and the Ohio Association of Public School Employees, complying with Ohio Revised Code 3307.353, which requires the notification of a hearing to be conducted at the regularly scheduled board meeting of April 12th, 2021 at the Board of Education offices, and that person is Donna Oxter. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Patton,
Second.
seconded by Mrs. Moses.
Yes, this is our notice, this is our public notice to let them know that Donna Oxter is going to be, she's asking to do a retire-rehire. It's a service, it's something that we do as allowed by the Ohio Revised Code that enables us to allow employees to retire into the retirement system, and then we can hire them back for another year. It saves us money, so because it's 1 year of employment, and then their most expensive years of their service will no longer be, the brunt of that will no longer be carried by the district. Again, there'll be a public hearing for people to have comment on April 12th.
Great, thank you. Are there any questions? Mr. Buchanan.
Mr. Patton?
Yes.
Mrs. Moses?
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Mr. Heckman?
Yes.
Mrs. Glavin?
Yes. Item B2, home instruction tutors. Recommended motion to approve Peter Bergman, Melissa Orphan, Valerie Perillo, Michelle Spielman, and Jeff Wentz as home instruction tutors for the 2020-21 school year.
Move.
May I have a moved by Mrs. Thomas,
Second.
second by Mrs. Moses.
Yes, Mrs. Glavin, when we have students that are unable to access the curriculum in a normal fashion due to injury or illness or some other reason, we provide them home instruction tutors so that they can make up the work that they've missed in instruction. And once they're done with that particular student, they are released from that duty.
Great, thank you. Any questions? Mr. Buchanan?
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Mrs. Moses?
Yes.
Mr. Heckman?
Yes.
Mr. Patton?
Yes.
Mrs. Glavin?
Yes. Item B3, supplemental contracts. Recommended motion to approve supplemental contracts to the following individuals, and they are listed below. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Heckman,
Second.
second by Mrs. Thomas.
Yes, these supplemental contracts are for our spring sports. These represent the teachers that are currently working for us. These are not new positions, they're existing positions, so there's nothing new that is added to these.
And all sports are planning to move forward. correct?
We are running with all sports. The OHSAA has said that we can go ahead with sports. Obviously, there are distancing and other safety protocols that we're going through. The winter was rough on our winter sports. There were many, many times where our winter sports athletes had to quarantine because of cases of COVID, which unfortunately is what would happen. Hopefully with the outdoor sports that are going on, there will be less of that because there's more distancing and fresh air. But again, all of our safety protocols are going to be in place.
Great. Thank you. Any questions? Mr. Buchanan?
Mr. Heckman?
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Mr. Patton?
Yes.
Mrs. Moses?
Yes.
Mrs. Glavin?
Yes. Item B4, non-district pupil activity permits. Recommended motion to approve non-district pupil activity permit contracts to the following individuals. May I have a motion, please? Moved by Mrs. Thomas, seconded by Mr. Patton.
These are all the non-teaching employees that, all the non-teaching personnel that are doing all of our spring sports. As you can see, there's more of them than there are of our teaching sports.
Exactly.
Getting coaches is a challenge, and we have to often go outside the district to get them.
There's some good people in here, too.
Right.
There are some very good people, some very strong people.
Okay, good. Any other questions? Mr. Buchanan?
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Mr. Patton?
Yes.
Mr. Heckman?
Yes.
Mrs. Moses?
Yes.
Mrs. Glavin?
Yes, that concludes our business items. Moving into information items and other reports to the board. Item C1, Mr. Bolden?
Yes, very exciting. We've had 3 Solon seniors named Presidential Scholar candidates.
Oh, nice.
It is very nice. The three people specifically are Michael Kong, Karis Liu, and Catherine Yu. They're named as candidates for the annual Presidential Scholars Program. It's done through the U.S. Department of Education. The Presidential Scholars Program is actually one of the highest honors that you can get in the nation. It's recognizing students' outstanding performance on the ACT or the SAT, as well as their leadership and service to the school and the community. About 161 students each year are named as presidential scholars. So for us to have 3 is pretty significant to be candidates for it. In the past recent years, we've had 6 presidential scholars. So this is something that happens for us. I wouldn't want to say it's a little thing, but it's something that happens pretty regularly for our students because of the strength of their kids and their hard work. And just, I wanted to say a note of congratulations to the 3 of them. We will know in May if they are
I was going to
presidential
ask that when we
scholars.
find out whether they, well, certainly congratulations to those 3 students. That's quite an accomplishment regardless of what the outcome is. Item C2, Mr. Bolden.
Yes, item C2, COVID update. So we are pretty stable. Cases are continuing to go down. We had several cases last week. We anticipate that's going to continue to go down as cases in the community go down. Our focus now is shifting about our planning for students to return for the 4th quarter. Part of the arrangement that we made with the Ohio Department of Health and the governor was that in exchange for our staff getting vaccinated, we had to commit to having in-person learning. For us, we were already having in-person learning. At all levels, we have been in-person with a few bumps in the road due to staffing since October when we returned from completely virtual. Since we came back from the winter holidays, we've been in person 5 days a week for our K-4 buildings, our pre-K-4 buildings, 4 days a week for our 5th and 6th grade building, and 2 days a week for our 7th through 12th grades. With staff vaccinations occurring, and they are continuing to occur, we actually have the last batch of staff getting vaccinated tomorrow on the 23rd is our last batch of staff.
For the first shot, correct?
For the first shot. Given our date of administration of our second shot, which is March 5th, we are looking at a date of March 19th for all of our staff to be considered vaccinated, or the bulk of our staff to be considered vaccinated. That will align to right at the end of the third quarter, which will enable us to look to bringing students back for the fourth quarter. As of now, and I know I've said this twice already today, distancing, masking, and the sanitation protocols must still be maintained.
So how does the governor think that we can have everyone back in with that going on?
Well, it's interesting that you say that because the governor did not say we have to have everyone in 5 days a week. What the governor said that we had to do was that we had to have some combination of in-person learning for every student that wants it coming back.
Well, yeah. But
And
a lot
hybrid
of people might want it.
And hybrid is a valid choice for doing that. So if every student says they want to come back and we still have to maintain distancing, we may have to change our instructional models to be able to support that. There may be staffing changes that need to occur. We may need to, because remember, we staffed based on who was going to be in and who was going to be out.
Right.
There are certain things like specials that, like gym or PE or art or those kinds of things, where we might not have needed additional personnel to do that because they were getting virtual components to that and they could come in. So we may have to add additional staff to help support additional students coming back into the building to go through that. We have time to make that happen if it's necessary, but our first step is to plan with our administrative team and to poll our families to determine what it is that, to determine what their preferences are to see what adjustments we need to have make.
I just have a question, just so I understand it correctly. In the event that there's an abundance of students that are ready and families that are ready to come back, I mean, could you envision then that, say, our K4 kids now are going 5 days a week? I mean, is putting them into a hybrid situation going to be in the mix?
Our philosophy has been since we came back that the younger the student, the more in-person days we want to give them.
Right.
If it is necessary and we have a huge influx of kids that are coming back in and we have to reduce the amount of in-person time to decrease sizes, we would try to opt to do that for as little as possible. That may mean that we shift to a similar model that we do for Orchard, which is 4 days a week, so that they're getting 4 days of in-person instruction and 1 day of virtual. And that's something that we need to consider. Right. It is a possibility that that might happen, but we have to determine it's all going to be based on the choices that our families make, the adjustments that we are going to make. Many districts around us are adopting models of in-person learning to go through that, but a lot of the districts around us that are doing it have a fifth of the students that we do, or a fourth of the students that we do. A 1,500 student school district has a different set of needs and a different set of operational realities than a 4,600 student school district. There are some school districts that are all in that have the same number of students that just our high school has. You know, the 1,500 to 1,600 students that we have in our high school sometimes represents an entire student body for a whole nother school district. We have to consider our facilities and how many kids we can put in a given area to go through that. If you will recall, we as a district opted for the 3-foot distance at the beginning when lots of people were doing 6 feet. We moved to 3 feet with masking to go through that. I guess the other thing I want to point out is guidance is continually shifting for us. I'm not anticipating it, but it's not impossible that the health department or someone might say, with additional masking and sanitation, you can be more lax on your distancing protocols. Should that happen, we could bring more students back in to come through that. But right now what we need to do is poll our families to see how many want to return to in-person learning, use that information to help us to develop that plan, and then communicate that plan to our families so that we can go through the logistics of everything necessary to bring our
Just wanted
kids
people
back.
to, that will be the driving force then. The driving force will be how many students want to be, or parents or families want to be in the district. So, I mean, if those changes have to be made, that's going to be the reason, not just, for change.
That is correct. They made it very clear in my conversation with the Board of Health on Friday. They made it very clear that we cannot force students to come back into the buildings that do not want to come back in. If they choose not to come back in, we cannot make them.
Right.
What they did say is that we still have to maintain distancing, we still have to maintain masking, and we still have to maintain all of our sanitization protocols. So that's going to be a big driving force, is parent request and our ability to maintain the distancing and masking.
I think we got it. Anything additional, Mr. Bolden?
No, Mrs. Glavin.
Mrs. Siegel?
No, Mrs. Glavin.
Mr. McCann?
No, Mrs. Glavin.
Mrs. Moses?
Okay, thanks.
Mrs. Thomas?
No, thank you.
Mr. Heckman? Last
What-
but not least,
Well, I mean, I'm very happy to see with all of our coaches out there getting the kids
back in action, huh?
back in action, as well as the drama club.
The 1X.
Right, the 1X, the 1 month 1X. I give Chris Ferenci and her brother Joe Ferenci acclimates. I mean, what I've been watching every Friday
since it was in
is
2001.
amazing, and I know that's going on with the sports as well, and so I give them a lot of credit.
Good. Well, thank you. This would be our second opportunity for public comment. If there is anything, Tammy, anything?
No, Mrs. Glavin.
At this time, I would entertain a motion to move into executive session for the purpose of item number 1, the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of public employees or regulated individuals, or the investigation of charges or complaints against a public employee or regulated individual unless that person requests a public hearing. And number 5, matters required to be kept confidential by federal law, rules, or state statutes. At this time, I will entertain a motion to move into executive session.
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Thomas, second by Mrs. Moses.
I would like to point out that there will be no business.
Right, there will be no business
conducted
taken.
at the end of this.
During executive session. Mr. Buchanan, would you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Mrs. Moses?
Yes.
Mr. Heckman?
Yes.
Mr. Patton?
Yes.
Mrs. Glavin?
Yes. Thank you, and thank you all for joining us.